The human explorer, Daniel, stepped cautiously onto the alien planet, the ground glowing faintly under his boots, strange shadows dancing across the forest of tall, bioluminescent plants. He had come here to study the life forms, to record and understand. But something about this place made his heart race, something unseen and unknown. He adjusted his helmet, scanning the dim landscape, when he heard a soft sound, almost like a sigh. Coming from behind a cluster of glowing ferns, Daniel froze, his hand instinctively reaching for the small scanner at his belt. The sound came again, quieter, trembling, and then he heard words whispered so softly he almost doubted he heard them. "I'm not clean." Daniel's eyes widened. He scanned the area, looking for the source. Nothing moved, nothing stirred, except for the faint shimmer of the alien plants. Then he saw it. A small figure, crouched low behind a leaf, barely bigger than a child. The figure was covered in something that glimmered under the soft lights, something sticky or wet. Daniel felt a strange mix of fear and curiosity. The little alien girl peeked at him through large, round eyes that seemed too big for her small face, shimmering with colors he had never seen before: purple, silver, and green. The colors shifted with her emotion, he noticed. They brightened when she blinked rapidly, a clear sign of fear. He swallowed hard, trying to remain calm, his training as an explorer telling him to move slowly. "Are you hurt?" Daniel asked softly, crouching down to appear less threatening. The girl shook her head, but her hands clutched the cloth around her, pressing it closer, as if hiding something important. I'm not clean," she whispered again, her voice trembling. Daniel felt a chill run down his spine, the words strange and mysterious. He could not understand exactly, but he felt the weight behind them. Carefully, Daniel reached out a hand, trying to show he meant no harm. "It's okay. You're safe here," he said, his voice low, gentle. The girl flinched and pulled the cloth tighter. Daniel paused, sensing that this was not just about fear, but about trust. She needed to decide if she could trust him, if she could survive with him. The forest around them was silent, almost waiting. A sudden rustle in the trees made Daniel's heart skip a beat. Something moved fast, maybe a predator, maybe just the wind. He could not tell. He turned slightly, scanning the shadows, but when he looked back, the girl had shifted slightly, her eyes fixed on him, pleading silently, her small voice whispering again, "Please, don't look too much." "I'm not clean." Daniel's mind raced. He had studied alien biology, but nothing had prepared him for this. Her body was different, strange markings, almost like glowing veins, ran across her arms and legs. Under the cloth he could see faint hints of more. He wondered what the cloth was hiding, whether it was injury, illness, or something more, something he had never encountered. Despite the fear, Daniel felt a surge of protectiveness. He could not leave her here alone. The forest seemed alive, watching, waiting. He could feel the danger pressing close, and yet he also felt a strange sense of wonder, as if this tiny, fragile creature carried secrets of the universe in her very being. He took a slow step forward, careful not to frighten her. "I won't hurt you," he said. "I just want to help." The girl's eyes widened, shimmering brighter for a moment, but she did not move closer, her tiny hands gripping the cloth as if it were a shield against the world. Daniel knew he had to act gently. One wrong move could end everything. A soft wind rustled through the glowing trees, and Daniel heard the whisper again, so quiet he almost missed it. When it falls, don't be afraid." The words made his heart pound, a warning, a plea, something he could not understand, yet he felt its meaning deep in his chest. His pulse quickened, anticipation and dread mixing together. Finally, he decided to reach for the edge of the cloth, slowly, carefully, his fingers brushing the material, old and soft. The girl trembled but did not pull away. Daniel took a deep breath, steadying himself, ready to see what lay beneath, his heart pounding in his ears, a million questions rushing through his mind. And then, just as he lifted the cloth slightly, the glow from the forest illuminated her face fully, and Daniel froze. His heart stopped for a moment. What he saw was unlike anything he had ever imagined, a mixture of beauty and shock, vulnerability and strength, something that made him gasp, yet at the same time, something that stirred a deep protective instinct in him. The forest seemed to hold its breath with him, the alien girl watching, trembling, waiting for his reaction, and Daniel realized in that instant that nothing in his training, nothing in his experience, had prepared him for this encounter. He had stepped onto this planet expecting to study alien life, But what he found was something far more extraordinary, something that would change him forever. And in the quiet darkness, with only the glowing plants and the soft, trembling whispers between them, Daniel knew that his adventure had only just begun. Daniel stepped back slightly, still frozen for a moment, his eyes fixed on the alien girl, the glow of the forest making her markings shine like tiny rivers of light across her skin. He could not look away, every instinct in his body telling him this encounter was unlike anything he had ever faced. The air was thick with tension, the silence of the forest pressing down, yet something in the girl's gaze seemed to invite trust, despite the fear that radiated from her. Slowly, he lowered the cloth a little more, careful not to startle her, and his mind raced, trying to process what he was seeing. The markings on her arms and shoulders were not injuries, not scars, but something alive, something moving under the skin, faintly pulsing. Almost like veins filled with light, Daniel felt a shiver run down his spine. This was not just an alien species. This was something extraordinary, something fragile and powerful at the same time. I don't understand, Daniel whispered, kneeling down to her level. What is happening to you? The girl looked at him with wide, fearful eyes, then shook her head, her small hands clutching the cloth tighter. It is dangerous, she whispered, her voice trembling. If anyone sees, they will take me. Daniel felt a pang of urgency. The forest seemed suddenly alive with unseen eyes. Watching, waiting, he did not know what they meant, but he knew the danger was real. Carefully, he extended his hand, showing her he meant no harm. I won't let anyone hurt you, I promise, he said softly. I just want to help. The girl hesitated. Then slowly, almost reluctantly, she allowed a finger to brush his hand, a tiny connection, fragile and trembling. Daniel felt a strange warmth, a bond forming in that moment, stronger than anything he could explain. Suddenly, a rustle echoed from the trees behind them. Sharp and fast, Daniel's head snapped up. Scanning the shadows, the alien girl froze, her small body rigid, and he could see her pupils widen in terror. He realized then that the danger was real, not imagined. Predators or perhaps other beings were nearby, tracking them, sensing the alien energy she carried. Daniel's heart raced, but he forced himself to stay calm. He needed to protect her. Stay close to me, he whispered, moving a step nearer. I'll keep you safe, she nodded slightly, her trembling fingers clutching his sleeve, and Daniel felt a rush of responsibility. This tiny life depended on him, and he could not fail. He looked at the glowing markings on her skin again, trying to understand. But they shifted and shimmered as if responding to his attention, a living map of her fear and trust. Why are you not clean? Daniel asked carefully, using her words, hoping to understand. She looked down, ashamed, her voice barely a whisper. Because I am different. Inside, Daniel's mind spun. He had studied alien physiology, but nothing like this. He realized she was carrying something unique, something vital yet dangerous, something she could not show anyone else. A sudden sound of cracking leaves made them both flinch. Daniel grabbed her hand and pulled her behind a glowing fern. Shadows moved between the trees. Fast and deliberate, Daniel's heart pounded. He did not know what exactly was coming, but he knew they had little time. We need to move, he whispered urgently. Can you walk? She nodded, clutching the cloth, her small body quivering but ready to follow. As they stepped carefully through the glowing forest, Daniel noticed her markings pulsing faster, brighter, almost as if responding to his presence. He realized that she was not just a fragile alien girl. She carried a power within her, something alive and sensitive, perhaps rare in her species, something that could explain the fear in her whisper, the warning in her words. Suddenly she stopped, pulling back, her eyes wide with terror. They are close, she whispered, pointing ahead. Daniel followed her gaze and saw shadows moving between the glowing plants. Faster than any animal he had seen, deliberate, searching, he realized that her words were not just warnings, they were truth, and every instinct in him screamed to run. Yet he could not leave her behind. Daniel's mind raced. He needed a plan, a safe place to hide. He looked at the glowing forest around them, noting the patterns of light and shadow, thinking quickly. The girl's small hand gripped his sleeve tighter, and he felt a surge of determination. He could not fail her. He would use everything he knew, every skill, every bit of courage to protect this fragile life. As they moved silently through the forest, Daniel noticed the subtle changes in her markings, the way the colors shifted when danger approached. When hope flickered, he realized she was communicating. Not with words, but with light. A secret language of trust and fear, something he had never seen before. And he knew then that this encounter was no ordinary exploration. It was a test of his humanity, of his courage and compassion. And in that glowing, dangerous forest, with shadows moving close and the alien girl trembling beside him, Daniel made a silent promise, a vow that no matter what came, he would protect her, understand her, and face the unknown with her. Together, Daniel led the small alien girl through the glowing forest, each step careful and slow, his eyes scanning every shadow, every rustle of leaves. He could feel the tension in the air, the danger pressing closer, but the girl clung to his sleeve, trembling yet trusting him in a way that touched something deep inside his heart. He realized that trust, fragile as it was, could be stronger than fear, stronger than danger. She kept the cloth wrapped tightly around her small body, but Daniel noticed her glances. Shy, curious, almost longing for connection. He wanted to show her it was safe, that he would not betray her trust. But every movement had to be slow, gentle, careful. One wrong gesture and she might run, vanish into the shadows, never to be found again. "Can you tell me your name?" Daniel asked softly, kneeling to meet her gaze, his hand open, palms visible to show he meant no harm. The girl hesitated, then whispered a name. Strange and musical, Leary. Daniel repeated it slowly, committing it to memory. "Leary, I will protect you." "I promise," she blinked, shimmering eyes brightening slightly, the colors of her markings flickering like tiny lights, a sign of acknowledgement. As they moved deeper into the forest, Daniel realized communication would be difficult. Her language was unlike any he had studied, but he could see feelings in her eyes, in the subtle shifts of her glowing markings. He smiled softly and pointed to a branch above. Mimicking eating. She giggled quietly, the sound like wind chimes, and mimicked the gesture back. Daniel laughed softly too, and for a moment the danger seemed to fade, replaced by connection. But the forest never stayed silent for long. A rustle echoed nearby, sharp and deliberate. Daniel stiffened. Sensing movement, Leary froze, her small hand gripping his sleeve tighter. The moment of joy vanished, replaced by urgent fear. He whispered, "We have to be careful, stay close," and she nodded, trusting him completely, a bond forming between them in that dangerous silence. They came to a small clearing where the glowing plants formed a natural dome, soft light filtering down like a shield. Daniel set Leary gently on the ground, kneeling beside her. "This is safe for now," he whispered, scanning the shadows. But she did not run, she stayed close, watching him with wide, trusting eyes, her markings pulsing gently, almost rhythmically, a quiet signal of calm. Daniel noticed something unusual. The markings on her arms and legs shifted more rapidly when she looked at him, almost like she was showing her feelings. Gratitude, trust, curiosity. He reached out slowly, touching her small hand lightly. "It's okay, Leary. I won't hurt you," she trembled, then nodded slightly, the first real sign of comfort. Daniel realized that the bond of trust was forming, fragile but powerful, a silent promise between human and alien, as they rested in the dome of light. Daniel tried to understand her condition, the reason she had whispered, "I'm not clean." Her body glimmered with energy, faint pulses of light, and he realized that this was not disease, not injury, but something extraordinary, something unique to her species, something that might be dangerous to others, yet essential to her survival, I think. "I understand a little," Daniel whispered to himself. "You're different, special, and that's why you hide. That's why you fear." Leary tilted her head, watching him carefully, her markings flickering with color, almost as if confirming his thought. Daniel smiled softly. "It's okay, Leary, you don't have to be afraid of me. I will protect you." She leaned slightly closer. A tiny gesture, but one that meant more than words. Suddenly the wind shifted, carrying a sound that made Daniel stiffen. Shadows moved between the glowing plants. Deliberate and searching, he stood slowly, placing himself between Leary and the movement, his mind racing, thinking of how to protect her. She glanced at him, eyes wide, and he saw something extraordinary, a flicker of hope, the realization that she trusted him completely. Daniel knew then that the bond of trust was not just about survival. It was about connection, understanding, and courage. He would face danger not just to protect her life, but because she had shown him that even in a strange, alien world, trust and compassion could create strength. He whispered, "We can get through this together." And Leary's small hand pressed against his, her markings pulsing with light, a silent promise as they moved again, Shadows creeping closer, Daniel led her carefully, using every skill he had learned as an explorer, every instinct as a human to keep them both safe. Each step forward strengthened their bond, each shared glance a reassurance they did not need words to communicate. Their actions and trust spoke louder than any language could, and in that glowing, dangerous forest with predators unseen and danger pressing close, Daniel realized that the bond he was forming with Leary was the most extraordinary discovery he had ever made. Not a creature, not a technology, but the fragile, powerful connection between two beings from different worlds, yet understanding each other perfectly. He knew then with certainty that no matter what came, no matter how dangerous the forest or how mysterious the creatures around them, he would not abandon her, not for a moment, for this bond of trust had become stronger than fear, stronger than danger, and it would guide them both through the unknown. Daniel and Leary moved slowly through the glowing forest, each step deliberate, careful, their shadows flickering across the alien plants. The tension in the air was thick, every rustle of leaves, every faint sound making them freeze. Daniel kept a protective hand near her, sensing the fragility and strength in her small form. He felt a strange connection, one that told him he could not leave her alone for a moment. The cloth Leary had clutched tightly since their first encounter drew Daniel's attention again.
He had wondered what it hid, why she had whispered,
"I'm not clean," over and over, and now after hours together, he felt he could perhaps gain her trust enough to understand. He stopped under the glowing canopy of trees, crouching beside her. "Leary, can you tell me about the cloth?" he asked softly, careful not to frighten her. Leary hesitated, glancing around the forest, her large, shimmering eyes wide with fear. "No." "It is dangerous," she whispered, clutching the cloth closer. Daniel nodded, understanding. "I will not touch it, I promise. I just need to know why it is important." Slowly, she relaxed a little, just enough to allow a peek at what was beneath. Daniel's heart raced, unsure what he would find. She slowly pulled the corner of the cloth away, revealing faint, glowing patterns across her body, more intricate than he had ever imagined, flowing like liquid light across her arms and torso. Daniel stared, amazed, his mind struggling to comprehend. These patterns were alive, moving, changing color with her emotions, pulsing faster when she was afraid, slower when she was calm. He realized that this was not just decoration. It was her life, her protection, her warning system. "The cloth hides it," Leary whispered, her small voice trembling. "If others see, they will take me." Or worse, Daniel understood then. Her fear was not imagined, not irrational. It was a survival instinct. She had carried this secret alone, for as long as she could remember, hiding a part of herself that was powerful, delicate, and perhaps feared by her own kind. Daniel reached out slowly, careful not to touch the glowing patterns. "Leary, you don't have to be afraid of me. I will protect you." She looked at him, her eyes wide and shimmering, a flicker of hope passing through her. He realized that trust was fragile, but it was building, like a bridge across the fear and mystery surrounding her. Suddenly, the forest trembled, a low, distant sound echoing through the glowing trees. Daniel's eyes darted around, sensing movement. Leary stiffened. Clutching the cloth, the danger was real, approaching faster than before. Daniel knew they could not stay in one place. He had to protect her while understanding the secret she carried. "Can you walk with me?" he asked softly. "We must find somewhere safe." Leary nodded, and together they moved, her small hand holding his sleeve tightly, her body trembling but trusting him completely. Daniel realized the cloth was not just a shield for her body. It was a shield for her spirit, her secret, and he had to respect it completely as they moved. Daniel studied the patterns again, trying to understand. He noticed that the glow shifted when she looked at him, the colors flickering brighter, almost like a pulse responding to his presence. He realized this energy might be dangerous to others, but to him it was beautiful, fascinating, and deeply moving, a living map of her emotions and life force. The forest suddenly opened into a narrow canyon, glowing softly under the alien light. Daniel led Leary carefully, using every instinct he had as an explorer, watching for predators, for enemies, for anything that could harm her. He felt a mix of fear and awe, realizing that the cloth had been her only protection until now, but with his guidance she could move safely. "Leary," he whispered, kneeling beside her again, "I understand now. The cloth is your secret, your protection, your life. I will not take it from you. I will not betray you." She looked at him, her eyes shining, a small nod acknowledging the promise. Daniel felt a surge of determination. He would keep her safe no matter what, her secret, her body. Her life were now his responsibility. As they continued through the canyon, the glow of the alien plants lighting their path, Daniel realized the bond between them had grown stronger. Not just trust, but understanding, respect, and protection. Leary's secret was no longer a mystery to him, but a responsibility. One he would carry even into the most dangerous parts of the forest, and in the quiet, glowing canyon. With shadows lurking beyond the light and danger pressing close, Daniel knew one thing for certain. He had to protect Leary, her secret and her life. Not because he had to, but because he chose to. Because compassion and courage were stronger than fear, and the bond they shared had become the most important thing in both their lives. Daniel moved swiftly through the glowing canyon, keeping Leary close beside him, every rustle of leaves, every flicker of shadow making his heart race. He had to think fast. Predators or hostile beings were near. Tracking the alien energy she carried, he could feel the danger pressing in from all sides. Yet he could not let fear control him. Not now. Not when Leary's life depended on him. "Leary, stay close," he whispered, glancing back to make sure she was safe. Her small hand gripped his sleeve tightly, and her glowing markings pulsed softly. A sign of trust. Daniel felt a surge of determination. He would do whatever it took to keep her alive. The forest was beautiful, strange, and dangerous all at once, and every step could be a trap. Yet he had a plan forming in his mind. He found a narrow path leading up a slope, partially hidden by glowing vines and tall, shimmering plants. "We can use this path," he said softly, kneeling to her level. "It will hide us from anyone following." Leary nodded slightly, her eyes wide and shimmering, and Daniel felt a flicker of hope. Even in the midst of fear, as they moved, Daniel studied the forest, noticing natural formations that could serve as hiding spots. He pointed to a cluster of glowing rocks, low to the ground, forming a shallow cave. "We can rest there for a moment, it will be safer," he whispered. Guiding Leary carefully, she followed, trusting him completely, her tiny body trembling but determined. Once in the shallow cave, Daniel crouched beside her, whispering a plan. "Listen, Leary, we have to reach the other side of the canyon. It is safer there. The shadows are less, and predators will find it harder to track us. I will lead, you follow exactly, understand?" She nodded, her eyes bright, the pulse of her markings quickening slightly with fear, but also determination. Daniel scanned the canyon. Plotting their route carefully, he noticed patches of glowing plants that would conceal their movement, rocks that could serve as temporary barriers, and the faint sound of water running in the distance, a small stream that could help cover their scent. He whispered instructions to Leary using gestures and simple words, guiding her step by step. Suddenly, a rustle echoed from behind. Faster than before, Daniel froze, listening intently. Leary's small hand pressed against his sleeve, trembling. He realized the predators were closer than he thought. He had no time for mistakes. "Move now," he whispered, and they dashed through the canyon, weaving between glowing plants, jumping over rocks, keeping low. The chase was intense, shadows moving just beyond the light, the forest seeming alive with every step. Daniel felt his pulse racing, yet his mind was sharp, calculating the fastest route, the safest path. He reached a small ledge above the canyon floor, guiding Leary up carefully, and they crouched, waiting for the shadows below to pass. The forest tense and silent around them. Daniel looked at Leary, her small face pale but determined. "We are almost there, stay with me," he whispered, and she nodded, trusting him completely, her glowing markings pulsing rhythmically with each breath. They waited for a moment, then moved again, the path narrow and dangerous. But Daniel's plan was precise, every step accounted for. As they neared the end of the canyon, Daniel noticed a thick grove of bioluminescent trees, tall and dense, perfect for hiding. He whispered to Leary, "Once we reach that grove, we can rest and be safe for a while. We just have to make it a little further." She squeezed his hand, her small body trembling with exhaustion, but she moved, following his lead. Suddenly, a growl echoed from below, deep and threatening. Daniel's heart skipped a beat. The predators had noticed them. He grabbed a small device from his belt, a portable energy flare, and activated it, sending a bright burst of light into the canyon below. The shadows recoiling instantly, giving them precious seconds to move. "Run," he whispered, and they sprinted the final stretch, leaping into the grove of trees, the dense foliage immediately hiding them. Daniel collapsed behind a tree. Catching his breath, Leary huddled beside him, trembling but alive. Her glowing markings softened, showing relief, and Daniel felt a surge of triumph. He looked at her and smiled softly. "We made it, Leary. We are safe. At least for now." She looked at him wide-eyed and whispered, "Thank you." Daniel felt a warmth in his chest, a mix of relief, pride, and compassion. The escape had worked, but he knew the danger was far from over. The forest held more secrets, more threats, yet he had proven they could survive together. In the quiet grove surrounded by glowing trees, Daniel realized something important. Their bond had grown stronger in the chase, in the fear, and in the shared determination to survive. Leary trusted him completely now, and he vowed to never let that trust break. No matter what dangers awaited, no matter what secrets the forest held, he would protect her, and together, they would face the unknown. The grove was quiet, but Daniel knew the danger was not gone. Shadows lingered at the edges of the glowing trees. Moving slowly, deliberately watching, he tightened his grip on Leary's hand, feeling the pulse of her glowing markings, faster now with fear yet tinged with trust. He knew that protecting her might demand everything he had. His courage, his wit, perhaps even his life. "We have to keep moving," he whispered softly. "They will not stop looking for you." Leary nodded silently, trusting him completely, her small body pressed close to his, the glow of her markings flickering as if in rhythm with his heartbeat. Daniel felt a surge of determination. He could not fail her now, not after everything. Suddenly, the rustling came closer, louder this time, and Daniel's heart froze. He could see the shadows separating from the forest, moving quickly through the glowing plants, intent clear in their deliberate motion. The creatures were unlike anything he had studied. Tall, fast, with eyes that glimmered like the moonlight, teeth sharp and gleaming, and their focus was entirely on Leary. Daniel stepped in front of her instinctively, placing himself between her and the approaching danger. "Stay behind me," he whispered, his voice steady despite the pounding of his heart. Leary obeyed, her trembling body close to his. And Daniel knew that now more than ever, he had to act decisively. Courage alone would not be enough. He needed a plan. He looked around quickly, scanning the grove, and spotted a narrow gap between the glowing trees, enough for Leary to slip through if he could hold the creatures off. Daniel knew what he had to do, a decision that chilled him, but he did not hesitate. He turned to face the shadows, hands ready, his body tense, ready to confront the danger, ready to give everything to save her. The creatures surged forward, their growls deep and threatening. Daniel dodged their first attack. The glow of their eyes reflecting off the alien plants, he swung a small energy flare, sending bursts of light to distract them, but there were too many, and they advanced relentlessly. He felt his chest tighten, adrenaline and fear mixing, yet his focus never wavered from Leary. "Go now, Leary," he shouted, and she hesitated for a moment, then slipped through the gap, her small form disappearing into the shadows of the glowing forest. Daniel turned back to face the creatures, his heart heavy, knowing he might not follow. Yet he did not falter. He would hold them off as long as he could. The creatures lunged, and Daniel fought with everything he had, dodging flaring light, using every skill he had as an explorer. Yet he could see the edges of exhaustion creeping in. The danger overwhelming, he took a deep breath, focusing on the thought of Leary's trust, the bond they had formed, drawing strength from it, his courage solidifying like stone. One of the creatures lunged too close, and Daniel rolled to the side, barely avoiding its teeth, his mind racing for a plan. He realized that he could lead them to the edge of a glowing cliff. Where the creatures might hesitate, unsure of the drop, it was risky, but it was the only way to give Leary a chance. With careful, deliberate movements, Daniel guided the creatures toward the cliff, his body moving like a dancer, dodging flaring light, and taunting them just enough to keep their attention. Every step calculated, every heartbeat critical. He could feel his strength waning, yet the thought of Leary's safe kept him moving, keeping him alive. Finally, he reached the edge of the cliff, the glowing forest stretching far below, and he took a deep breath, flaring the light once more, luring the creatures toward the edge. Their hesitation was just enough, and Daniel seized the moment, leaping backward, narrowly avoiding their grasp and tumbling into the dense trees below. His body bruised, his breath ragged, yet alive below. The forest provided cover, shadows and glowing plants concealing him as the creatures roared in frustration. Unable to follow him safely, Daniel lay there for a moment, catching his breath, pain and relief mingling, and then he heard a small trembling voice above. "Daniel!" Leary had come back, slipping carefully through the trees to him. Her glowing markings soft and gentle now, a sign of relief. He smiled weakly, exhausted, bruised, yet alive. "You're safe now, Leary. I promised." She pressed her small hand against his, a silent gesture of gratitude. Daniel realized in that moment that the ultimate sacrifice he had prepared for, the risk to his life, had not been in vain. His courage, his willingness to face the unknown had saved her, and the bond between them had become unbreakable. In the quiet aftermath, surrounded by glowing plants, Daniel knew that every moment of fear, every second of danger had been worth it. Not for glory, not for fame, but for the fragile, extraordinary life of the alien girl who had trusted him completely. He looked at her, her shimmering eyes meeting his, and felt a deep, unspoken understanding. The ultimate sacrifice had become the ultimate act of humanity, and as the forest seemed to breathe around them, Daniel realized that bravery and compassion, courage and trust were stronger than any danger, more powerful than fear, and that together he and Leary could face anything, no matter what the alien world held. The forest was quiet now, the glowing plants casting soft light on the path ahead. Daniel and Leary moved carefully, each step slow and deliberate, but for the first time, the fear that had pressed on them for days felt lighter. Leary's small hand gripped his sleeve gently, a sign that she trusted him completely, and Daniel felt a warmth in his chest he could not describe. They reached the edge of the canyon, where the glowing forest opened to a small valley, soft mist rising from a clear stream, the water sparkling under the alien light. Daniel knew this place was safe, at least for a while, and he lowered himself to his knees, letting Leary step ahead. Her small feet moving carefully over the soft ground, she paused, looking back at him, her shimmering eyes reflecting relief, gratitude, and something like hope. Daniel smiled softly, exhausted, bruised, but alive. "We are safe now, Leary," he whispered, and she nodded, pressing her tiny hand against his, a silent gesture of trust and connection. He studied her glowing markings, now calm, soft, pulsing gently with life, and realized that the bond they had formed was more extraordinary than anything he had ever encountered, a living symbol of trust, courage, and compassion. The mist of the valley swirled gently, and Daniel led Leary to the stream, letting her dip her hands into the cool, clear water. "Drink." "It is safe," he said softly, and she obeyed, the tension in her small body easing with every sip. Daniel watched her, marveling at her resilience, at her trust, at the way she had survived everything the forest had thrown at them. He knew that she was stronger than she realized as they rested by the stream. Daniel looked around the valley, noticing signs of life, alien flowers and plants thriving, small creatures darting through the undergrowth, and he felt a sense of peace he had not known since arriving on this planet. Leary's soft gaze followed him, her markings pulsing softly, and he realized that this moment was more than survival. It was a beginning, a chance to build something new. Suddenly Leary spoke, her voice small but clear. "Daniel, thank you." He smiled, shaking his head. "You don't have to thank me, Leary. I promised I would protect you. And I will." She looked up at him, eyes wide, her glowing markings flickering brighter with emotion. Daniel felt a lump in his throat, realizing that this tiny alien girl had taught him more about courage, trust, and compassion than he could have ever imagined. He helped her settle by the edge of the stream, letting her rest, and then he looked to the valley beyond, thinking of the journey still ahead, the possibilities, the challenges, but also the hope. "We can make it," he whispered. "Together, we can face anything." Leary's small hand touched his, a connection deeper than words, a bond that would last. In the quiet glow of the valley, Daniel thought of the forest, the dangers they had faced, the creatures they had escaped, and he realized that every trial had brought them closer, had forged a trust that was unbreakable. He smiled softly, knowing that the ultimate gift of the journey was not just survival, but the friendship, the bond, the understanding between human and alien. The sun, or what passed for a sun on this alien planet, began to rise, casting soft, warm light over the valley, painting the glowing plants in gentle colors. Daniel and Leary sat together, watching, letting the quiet moments wash over them. He felt a peace he had never known, a sense that the journey was not over, but that they had taken the first steps towards something extraordinary. Daniel whispered softly, "Leary, we are safe. And this is just the beginning." She smiled faintly, her shimmering eyes reflecting the soft light, a mixture of joy, relief, and wonder, and for the first time, Daniel felt that he understood the meaning of the whispered words from the darkness. I'm not clean. It was not shame or fear. It was survival, it was uniqueness, it was life. And in that quiet, glowing valley, Daniel realized that the story was not about fear, or danger, or darkness, but about hope, compassion, and the extraordinary power of trust. He knew that together he and Leary could face anything, explore anything, and survive anything, because the bond they shared was stronger than fear, stronger than danger, stronger than the unknown. As the first light of the alien sun spread across the valley, Daniel and Leary stood together looking forward, hearts beating in quiet harmony, ready to face whatever came next, knowing that their journey had only just begun, but also knowing that they would never face it alone. And in that moment, the human heart felt full, the alien girl's trust shining brighter than any danger, and the promise of a new beginning stretching endlessly before them.